Man, I just finished the season finale for The Penguin. That show has been taking over my life every single week, every single Monday. I've been so fucking excited to see what happens next in this TV show. It has been absolute insanity every week. It's like the perfect crime drama that puts the hero of the story, who's the Penguin, who's not a hero, but he's the hero of the story. He's the hero of his own story. Everyone's the hero of their own story. So it puts him every single week in a position where he's on top, and then by the end of the episode, he's back at the bottom. And it's like he goes from being scot free to being in a life or death situation every single week. And it has been the most anxiety inducing TV show I've watched that's been serialized in a really long time. So, quick bit of backstory for those of you who are not caught up or haven't seen it or aren't interested at all and just curious about this video. The Penguin is about pretty much what happened at the end of the Batman. So spoilers for that too, and spoilers for the Penguin. But at the end of the Batman, the Riddler kills Carmine Falcone. Carmine Falcone pretty much owns the city. He owns the police. He owns the drug business. He's this massive drug overlord. And the Riddler kills him. So there's this massive vacuum. All the big families, all the big drug families, all the big crime families in Gotham find themselves in this have this opportunity now to seize control over the city, control over the drug market, and there's a lot of money to be made here. So Penguin also sees this opportunity and wants to seize it for himself too. So that's pretty much where the show starts. Now, to kind of switch gears a little bit over to the actual show, I know this point has been beaten like a fucking dead horse over and over and over again, but I have to say it for myself. Colin Farrell is absolutely incredible as the Penguin. He puts in the performance of a lifetime with this show. I think he's been a very famous actor for a long time. He's been in big movies, but I really feel like this is his role. This is the role that he's been working his whole life for. I feel like this is the one where he finally shows a massive wide range of all his talents just with this one character, with the Penguin, because there's so much emotion that goes into his character, from being extremely angry to extremely sad to happy. Like, he hits all the fucking keys on the piano with every single emotion in this character's arsenal, and it's just been an absolute treat to watch for 8 weeks straight. It is insane. Not only that, I just want to say there's no world in which we would have gotten this show without how good of a performance he put into the Batman. And in the Batman, he doesn't have that much screen time. So, with very little screen time in the Batman, he put in such an incredible performance with that movie. They decided to make a whole show around it and around him. And I'm so fucking happy that they did, because this show absolutely bangs. It has been the most exciting show to watch over the last 8 weeks. Like I said, it's been taken over my life. It is so incredibly exciting and thrilling. Man, I cannot sing the praises enough, but I will, because that's what this whole video is going to be about. All right, now that I've glazed Colin Farrell and the Penguin enough, I think I have to switch over to Sophia Falcone. So Sophia Falcone is played by Kristen Milioti, and man, if you thought Colin Farrell as the Penguin was good, I am so glad they found someone equally as talented and incredible to play a role to oppose the Penguin, as well as Kristen Milioti does with Sophia Falcone. So she's known as Sophia Falcone. She grows up in the Falcone family. Her dad is Carmine Falcone. There's a lot of shit that happens in her past, which I'll get to, but she goes from being Sophia Falcone to being Sophia Gigante. And I just want to make sure that that point is uh, emphasized enough. She goes from being just another Falcone family member to making her whole entire she makes her own name famous. Gigante is her mother's maiden name. She gets rid of the Falcone name, and then she wants to be known as Sophia Gigante. And man, does she make that name mean something in Gotham, because holy fuck, what she does with this character and where her character leads with the screenplay and the story that was written is just super impressive. What happened to the Falcone name? Why did she call herself Gigante? Well, in one of the episodes, it is revealed that Carmine Falcone has had this alias, or had an alias named after him. Nobody knew who it was, but there was someone in Gotham called the Hangman. Now, the Hangman pretty much would kill women and string them up in a noose, and pretty much the scene would look like they killed themselves, which they didn't. They were murdered, and then that's what happened to their bodies to make it look like a suicide. But Carmine Falcone has been the hangman this entire time. Also makes you look back to that moment in The Batman where he's trying to kill Selena Kyle with the pool stick and tries to choke her down with it on the floor. You can only imagine what he would have done afterwards if he was actually successful with it. He would have just added another body to the hangman's victim list, which is insane. So there's that detail from that movie that plays a role here in The Penguin as well, which is so cool how those two, the movie and the show, just kind of work so well together. And obviously that's what they were trying to do with the show, is work super well with the Batman. So anyway, Carmine Falcone is the hangman, and Sophia Falcone finds out about this, and she kind of goes to a reporter to tell her and kind of break the news and do all this stuff, but she kind of backs out of it. But that's not how Carmine hears it. Carmine hears it through the Penguin, who was there when she was doing all of this stuff, and the way that the Penguin tells it is obviously a way that favors him and wants to get the Penguin closer to Carmine, or another rank up on the ladder of the Falcone drug family. And that's exactly what it does for him, because Carmine sees this as a threat. Carmine starts to see his daughter, Sophia Falcone, as a threat to him, because she knows something that nobody else knows and that he wants to keep quiet, but she might have broken the news about. Anyway, Carmine decides to pin the entire hangman alias and all the crimes associated with the hangman on Sophia Falcone. Now, how do you think he goes about this? Well, we know from the Batman that he owns the police. So he essentially makes one quick call, which it's like a 10-minute sequence. they're talking, Sophia and Carmine, and then Sophia leaves, and like fucking 10 minutes later, the police are onto Sophia, pull her car over, which the Penguin is driving, and it's actually the dude from the Batman who Batman breaks the nose of, that arrests her, and just says that we've caught you as the hangman, and these are all your crimes that you've been charged for, and we're sending you away to jail, or Arkham State Hospital, or Arkham Asylum. I'm pretty sure. I think it's Arkham Asylum. Anyway, that's where she ends up because of the quick call that Carmine Falcone made to the police, because he owns them, and he pins that all down on her, which is just insane. So yeah, that's a very long-winded way of saying that's why Sophia Falcone got rid of the Falcone name, ditched it, and wanted to be known after her mother's maiden name, which is Gigante. Yeah, that was a long rant on that, but that whole sequence and everything that has to do with her origin, essentially, that pretty much turns her into Sophia Gigante, all happens within one episode. So this is an 8-episode TV series that is serialized, so it comes out once a week. This all happens in one episode. There are 2 episodes in the show that pretty much are dedicated to side characters. So one of them being Sophia Falcone's episode, the other one being Victor's, which I'll get onto later on. But I just want to say I'm so fucking glad that they had the confidence and the balls to do this, to give a fraction of the show over to 2 side characters. Because I really think that if they did not give an episode to Sophia Falcone and kind of explain her origin in the show or in the Falcone family or whatever, I don't think the audience would have cared as much for her as they did. I think her character is so incredibly powerful and inspiring. Inspiring is a bad way to put it, because she's a villain and she kills people, but it's inspiring to see such an incredible performance and to see how the show made you care for her character, even though she's a bad person. She's opposed with the Penguin, so it's like, pick a fucking side, they're both bad. But yeah, it's just, I'm so happy that they gave her an entire hour to explore her character in such depth and in such a meaningful and impressive way. That's pretty much all I want to say. I'm so glad that they gave her an episode. Also, very quickly, the way that she kind of figures out that her dad is the hangman is done really well too. So she actually witnesses her mum hanging from a noose. So her mum supposedly kills herself, but through some therapy that she does in Arkham Asylum with this therapist called Julian Rush, they figure out that Carmine actually killed her mum, which is his wife, which is crazy. And then Sophia finds her dead, pretty much, which is incredibly traumatizing to her, which is pretty much why she's batshit crazy these days. But then through therapy, through this fucking like red laser therapy that they do, which is incredible, they kind of go back in time and make you remember the sort of shit that you tried to forget and push out of your head. She figures out that that's what happened when she was a kid. And that's another reason she resents her dad and kind of wants to get rid of the Falco name and be known as a Gigante. Sophia's character is written so fucking well. And this entire show is written incredibly well as well. From start to finish, there is not a single second of dialogue or storytelling in this show that is written poorly. It is all written masterfully well. And it all looks fucking fantastic as well. If you thought the Batman looked really good, this show is just another example of how incredible the world of Gotham that Matt Reeves created with the Batman and with the cinematography in that movie created. This show kind of takes all of that as inspiration, and Gotham and all the surrounding cities and everything in the show look incredible as well. All the cinematography looks all inspired from the Batman. So if you're worried that this show is going to look poor because it's a TV show and it's not a movie and it doesn't have as big a budget and it doesn't have the same cinematographer as the Batman, don't worry. It looks fucking phenomenal. It's so raw. It feels so real. It's disgusting and gross and dirty, but it's so engrossing as the same way that the Batman felt so engrossing. You just feel like you are living in this world with the characters. It just draws you in and it doesn't fucking let you go. It just feels phenomenal. It feels real. There's also one shot in this show of Gotham while it's snowing, and I believe the Batman Part 2 is meant to be set in winter. And that shot from this show looks fan-fucking-tastic. It looks incredible. I was so captivated by how well that scene was shot. It was only like a fucking smidgen. It was like 2 fucking seconds of snow in Gotham, and that's all we got of it. But I was like, damn, that looks fucking good. So that just got me really excited for what the Batman Part 2 could look like in winter. Now, I mentioned this very quickly before. There are 2 episodes of this show that are dedicated to side characters. One of those being Sophia's episode, which I just talked about, which I fucking loved. The other episode that was dedicated to a side character was Victor's episode. Now, Victor is a person that grew up in Crown Point, and Crown Point is like the shithole of the shithole of Gotham. Gotham already felt like a shithole from the Batman, but this is like if a shithole had a shithole, it's fucking Crown Point, and he grew up in the most poverty-stricken, gross, disgusting, far away from the city sort of thing. Like, it's in one of the poorest areas of Gotham, and this is where this character grew up. So he grows up in a very hardworking family, but Victor always kind of saw his dad as someone that didn't really get what he deserved. He didn't work for what he was worth. He worked for less than he was worth. And Victor always saw that, and he always thought his dad should be earning more, but his dad never wanted to go about that. So Victor kind of came from this family that was very humble, but Victor, he was hungry. You know, his family was humble, but he was hungry. He wanted more out of life. And so when he kind of comes in contact with the Penguin, which happens in like episode 1, he's with his mates and they're trying to steal his fucking rims from his car, the purple Maserati, the plum Maserati, I should say, sorry. Penguin kind of leads him in. He's like, hey, I need some help with this body. He just killed fucking Alberto Falco. And he's like, we need to dump the body. Can you help me? Now, the episode almost ends with the Penguin killing Victor. Because obviously he needs to kill him. He just helped him carry a dead fucking body of the previous drug lord of Gotham. Like, obviously he needs to kill the only person that knows he has this body. But he doesn't. And they actually turn into quite the fucking partner in crime. Like, Penguin and Victor start to own this shit. So there's this dude called Rex Calabrese from Penguin's past, and the Penguin idolized Rex, and the Penguin wanted to be like Rex. So now he finally has his opportunity to be the person that the Penguin looked up to, and he wants to be the Rex Calabrese, not only for this city, but for Victor as well. He wants to be someone that Victor can look up to and learn from. Anyway, what kind of leads Victor to the Penguin and what leads him into a life of crime is he loses his family. And this is what we learn in the origin episode of Victor and the episode that is dedicated to his character. We learn that on the night of the bombs going off in Gotham, set off by the Riddler, which caused the flooding, he's actually at a party while his family's at home, and he's at a party that's on a rooftop that's actually a couple buildings away from his home. So he can actually see from where he's standing on top of the building into his family's home. So he can see his family in there. And as he's at this party, he's kind of talking to a girl, and these bombs go off. Obviously, the flood comes rolling in, and it's going directly to his family's home. And it's a lot more dangerous than it seems in the Batman. They actually show it really up close, and the water's moving super quickly, and there's a shit ton of it. Like, there's a massive amount of flooding. Like, this is the sort of water that you would drown in. Obviously, it's like 10, 12 feet tall. It's huge. And he tries to call his parents, and they don't answer in time for them to be saved, because the flood just hits their family home, and it breaks the window, and it all goes in, and I'm pretty sure they all die. They do all die. It's pretty much confirmed, but that's where Victor's downfall pretty much begins, and he really has nothing after that point. So when he meets the Penguin, he's at the lowest point of his whole entire life, and he's really struggling to pave his own way. So once he meets the Penguin, and the Penguin starts promising all these things to him, if he just kind of starts from where the Penguin started, pretty much with Carmine, he's like the Penguin he's like the version of the Penguin that the Penguin was when he was working for Carmine, when he was at the very lowest point of working in that system. That's how Victor is for the Penguin. The Penguin is pretty much Carmine now, and Victor is pretty much how Penguin was at the beginning. So it's a very cool way to kind of show the way that the Penguin has grown as a character, and where he's turned out to be after working for Carmine and after his death, and how Victor has kind of started into this very similar trajectory into the crime world. Very quickly as well, I just want to talk about this. At the end of the Victor episode, the dedicated Victor episode, there's this moment where Victor can either turn his back on the Penguin and pretty much go with this girl that he had feelings for before the Penguin and him met. She kind of turns up in his life again, and they can kind of live happily ever after somewhere else, away from Gotham. They want to catch a bus somewhere. He either has the option of going with her at the end of this episode, or sticking with the Penguin. Now, the Penguin kind of learns about this. He sees the text on his phone, where Victor is pretty much thinking of leaving and turning his back on him, and the Penguin kind of feels a bit betrayed. He's like, do you feel like you have a gun to your head? Do you feel like I'm keeping you here? Do you feel like you're trapped, you're a hostage, whatever? You're actually free to go. Like, you can make your own decision here. So Victor leaves, and he watches his girlfriend, the person that he has feelings for, he watches her at the bus stop waiting for him, and the cogs are turning in his mind, and he's like, nah, fuck it. I want into this crime world. I want more. I'm hungry. My dad wasn't earning what he was worth. I want to earn what I'm worth. I want to get my piece in this pie. And he goes back to the Penguin. He saves him. He really saves his own skin with the Penguin as well. Like, he gets him out of a life or death situation, and they both run away. And that's kind of where their partnership starts. And it's really impressive to see how they built up Victor to not just being like a side character, but being a really pivotal character in this whole overarching story. So not only does the Penguin have this incredibly strong leading man in Colin Farrell as the Penguin, it also gives a lot of time and dedication to these side characters to build them up, to develop them, and to really make the audience care about them. So when shit happens to them, you don't feel like, oh, it's just a side character, whatever, who gives a fuck. You actually care about what goes on with those characters and how their story intertwines with everything going on with the Penguin too. It's really impressive. Not a single character in this show feels left behind or underdeveloped or like you just don't care about. Every single character is well written, their stories are told, and you're just invested in the whole entirety of this show. Everything from the main character to the side characters to how Gotham is represented in the show too. It's just so impressive. Oh shit, we're like 20 minutes into this video. So this is like the only video that I'm making about the Penguin. So I just wanted to talk about everything that I've loved about the show so far. I'm not going to talk about everything because I think it'll be like a 3-hour fucking video on everything I loved about the Penguin, and I don't want to make the Batman length video on it, but pretty much the three biggest things that I've loved about this show have been Colin Farrell as the Penguin, Kristen Milioti as Sophia Falcone / Sophia Gigante, and I believe it's Renzi Felice. I'm so sorry if that's not how you pronounce your name. It looks very hard to pronounce, but Renzi Felice as Victor they've been so well cast as their characters, and they do an absolutely incredible job with the roles that they have, and how they kind of develop them and explore those characters is just phenomenal. But now I'm going to talk about the ending, because I just watched the finale. That's why I'm making this video. Man, so the ending. This has been an 8-week long cat and mouse chase with the Penguin and Sophia Gigante, and it has been the most anxiety-inducing thing I've watched in TV in a very long time. And wow, it ends in spectacular fashion. So it's almost like every single episode, the Penguin is on top and then he's at the very bottom again. It's like he can never win fully. He always loses in some aspect. And at the end of episode 7, he thought he was on top. He thought he had control over the drug business. He killed Salvatore Moroni, and he thought Sophia Falcone was pretty much fucking trapped in a corner and she couldn't do shit about it. But she decides to like drive a fucking SUV into his drug lab and blow the whole shit up. And then she kidnaps his mum. And it's just, it's like, where the fuck do you go from there? Like, what do you do? And I'll tell you what they fucking did. So Sophia Gigante and Julian Rush is like the therapist that does all the hypnosis stuff and fucking delves into people's past. They delve into his mum's past because Sophia has his mum, and they figure out that when the Penguin was a boy with his two brothers, they went out one day and they decided to play fucking hide and seek in this underground place. And obviously Penguin has this limp. His brothers kind of tease him about it, and they go down this little hole, this well. It's a overflow pipe or something, so like the water kind of gets trapped there if there's flooding. And so they go down the pipe. There's a ladder that goes down it, and the Penguin obviously can't go down the ladder to find his brothers, which he's playing hide and seek from, which is why that he's trying to find them. He can't go down the ladder. He's really mad about it because they know he can't do it, and they are just teasing him. So he decides to trap his brothers in that hole and close the fucking lid on them, lock it, and go home and be with his mum. Which, by the way, they have a really weird fucking relationship, which is crazy that they explored that in the show, and it ends in an even weirder fashion. But I can't believe that's explored. But anyway, Julian Rush and Sophia figure this out from doing therapy with his mum, and they really like drill this into him. They really drill this into the Penguin. They're like, would you really not tell the truth? Would you really not own up to what you did when you were a kid to your mum when we're like threatening to cut her finger off? They've got like her finger in one of those fucking hole things that clamp down and chop your finger off. And he's like denying this story that Sophia has told him, and he knows they know, and he knows, but he doesn't know how. But anyway, he won't admit it, and Sophia has him pretty much by the balls here until the Penguin can kind of get out of this situation. And he never gets out in like a miraculous way. He never gets out in like a unbelievable way. He always gets out in a way that is very realistic. Anyway, the Penguin gets out of this situation after his mum has a fall, which is like really scary. She's an old lady with a really bad mental disorder that's explored in the show. It's a really like rare kind of mental disorder that's explored, but explored nonetheless and done really well. And so the Penguin picks her up, gets a gun off this guy, kills kind of Sophia's bodyguards, and tries to shoot at her as well while he's making his escape with his mum over his shoulder. He takes her to a hospital, and now Sophia kind of puts out this hit on the Penguin to kind of get him back and finish this whole thing once and for all. And what happens, but the Penguin explains to a councilman that he kind of, I wouldn't say made friends with, but has kind of this weird alliance with, based on how he got, or how the Penguin kind of blackmailed him into getting power back in Crown Point and like lights and shit and energy and electricity. Anyway, he goes to him and explains the whole situation with the explosion in Crown Point that happened because of Sophia, and then he's just like, dude, here's this story. You can become the hero of the free world or like the non-crime world or like the media or whatever if you break this story, and like think about where that could get you in state politics and shit and in Gotham politics. So he's like, fuck yeah, let's do this. So the Penguin kind of makes all these like weird alliances down the road with like these different crime families in Gotham. He makes these alliances. Some of them stand by their alliances, some of them don't. There's this one dude, actually. So when the Penguin was like growing up in the Carmine Falcone family, he was always like second rank. And each of these families all have their like second rank. But if you know anything about like coming second, you always wish you came first. So all of these second rank people see their first rank and see their boss, and they're like, when this hit is put out on the Penguin, all the bosses are like, fuck yeah, let's get the Penguin, let's hand him to Sophia so we can like get power over the city. And one of the second rank dudes, he's in like, I believe it's the Chinese crime family in Gotham. He's like, fuck that, we're gonna stand by Penguin. I'm gonna take power of my family away from the old dude that has had power for so long. And that's what he does. He pretty much pretends to him that they found the Penguin and that they're going to bring him to Sophia. But what ends up happening is the second rank dude shoots his dad or like the boss or whatever. And the Penguin and everyone around him is on his side now. And Sophia's alone. So they're like, we fucking won. They finally won, man. Like that cat and mouse chase for so long. And after all that, Penguin wins because all of the alliances he made along the way and all the promises that he made, whether they were real or not. Some of the promises that he makes in this show are not real, but he wins in the end because of all the alliances and friends that he made in Gotham, which is crazy. So Penguin takes Sophia on a drive, and Penguin used to be her driver, which is really funny. So it's a really funny situation to be in. But Penguin takes her on this drive. He takes her somewhere far away, somewhere very secluded to look over the city. And Sophia thinks this is because this is where he's going to kill me. And Sophia kind of makes peace with the fact that she's going to die right now. She looks away, she turns around, Penguin's pointing a gun at her. She kind of takes these deep breaths and thinks about, I mean, her whole life like flashes back in her eyes, and she takes these deep breaths, and then this spotlight comes on her, like a helicopter spotlight, and she's surrounded by police, and she kind of figures out that after all this time, the Penguin wasn't going to kill her. He was going to send her back to Arkham Asylum, which is really bad for Sophia because she hated being in Arkham Asylum, and she was sent there for crimes that she didn't commit in the first place. She is sent there for crimes she did commit this time around, but to be back in such a traumatic place for her is really bad for her character and her mental well-being. Anyway, that's where she ends up. Penguin wins because of that. And it's like such a satisfying ending. It's such a crazy ending. But what I wanted to talk about the most, so obviously my three favorite things in the show has been the Penguin, Sophia, and Victor. Those have been the three strongest characters, I would say, in this whole show. They've been the three main characters, I would say, as well. And Penguin's mum has also been a very big character in the show. It's always been the Penguin's weak spot. His mum has always been his weak point. I think a superhero or a hero's family in any kind of superhero show or movie or whatever is always their weak point. So if you think about Spider-Man, Aunt May's his like weakness. If you think about like fucking Superman, the Man of Steel movie with Henry Cavill, his weakness was his mum and dad. I almost said aunt and uncle. His mum and dad, like they're his weakness. You think about Batman and Batman v Superman. You think about that scene where Superman says Martha and Batman's like, where did you hear that name? And like, obviously every superhero's weakness is their family. So Penguin realizes this and he's like, I can't have family anymore. I can't have this weakness looming over me that's gonna like fuck up every kind of business decision I make. So at the very end of the show, Penguin and Victor are sitting on a park bench together, and Victor kind of admits that the Penguin has not only been like this incredible partner that's taught him so much in this show throughout the whole show, but he's become family to him. And when the Penguin heard that Victor considered him family, he snapped and he was like, fuck that. I cannot have family in this world. I cannot have family in crime, because family in crime is a weakness. I cannot have weaknesses. And he pulls Victor in close. He puts his hand over his throat and he chokes him to death. And that ending by itself, if Victor didn't have his own dedicated episode in the show, that ending would have been meaningless, because Victor wouldn't have been developed in that way if he didn't have that episode. Because he had his own episode in this show, that ending is so incredibly hard hitting and painful to swallow. It was really fucking sad that Victor died and Penguin killed him. It wasn't even like a bad blood sort of thing. It was just because they grew so close together, and because of what happened to Penguin's mum, where she's in this vegetative state at the end of the show. She is alive, but she can't speak or move or do anything like that, pretty much. So he saw what happened to the person that he cared most about and how he felt about it. And he was pretty much brought to his knees sobbing at her hospital bed when the nurse tells him that his mum is in this vegetative state. He's like, I can't be in this position ever again. And because Victor has this kind of family feeling for him, and I guess the Penguin does have like this sort of sense that Victor is like family to him as well. He can't have that anymore, so he decides to kill himself and not have any more weakness. Which was like, damn, that's such a sad and crazy way to end this show and end that relationship. Ooh, so yeah, that that was a massive rant on everything I loved about this TV show, everything I loved about the Penguin. I'm so glad it was made. I'm so glad that Colin Farrell returned for his role, and they put so much fucking effort into this show. One of the things about this show that has been so incredible to kind of watch as well has been the what would you call it? Like, they made a podcast, a kind of sister podcast to the show. So the podcast has an episode that releases every week along with the latest episode of The Penguin, and they talk about that episode and everything that kind of goes down in the episode, and where they were kind of, or how they were feeling from a screenplay perspective, an actor perspective, a producer perspective, like everything, every aspect of the show they kind of delve into and dissect and talk about on the podcast. It's been incredible to watch. But one of the things I wanted to talk about on that podcast was how much love and passion all of the producers, all of the writers, all of the actors all have for the world of the Batman and the comics and everything. And it's so funny to hear how much love and passion those people that made this show had for the source material of the world of the Batman and DC in general, and how little so many other shows, like for instance the Halo show, how little care the people that made the Halo show had for the gaming series before they made it, and how they were boasting that they didn't play the game before making the show, and how that's like a good thing apparently, but it quite clearly isn't. And you can quite clearly see a quality difference in and a reception difference in how well received the Penguin was. And I would say it's wholeheartedly because the people that made it cared about the source material, and they cared about bringing these characters to life and showing them in a way that or presenting them in a way that they've never been presented before, because there's characters in the show that have never seen the light of day on TV or in movies. For instance, the Hangman. I don't believe the Hangman has been explored, at least in live action, in a movie or a TV show that's been DC related. So that's incredible. And I have thoroughly enjoyed listening to that podcast every week along with the latest episode of The Penguin. I haven't watched or listened to the latest episode of the podcast yet for episode 8, but I will after I make this video, so I'm very excited for that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about very quickly with the Penguin is I've said that I've wanted to talk about things very quickly this entire video, and it's like over half an hour long. So that's a complete lie on my part. I've done a Penguin promise there, not a real promise, just a fake promise. Anyway, I've seen a lot of people on Reddit talk about how they're very upset that they haven't referenced the Batman in the Penguin show. And to those people, this show is called The Penguin. It's about the Penguin. Who gives a fuck that the Batman hasn't been referenced in the show? I think that people have an issue with, I wouldn't just say accepting, but I would say people have an issue with appreciating what they have. They will always complain about what they don't have. It doesn't matter how good the thing that you have is. People will always complain about what it is that they don't have. So I'd say this show's a fucking 10 out of 10 straight out the gate. This show is a masterpiece of TV and storytelling and acting and directing and screenplay writing and cinematography. It is a masterpiece in all aspects of media. And it's just been really weird seeing people complain about how the Batman hasn't been referenced in the TV show. Who gives a fuck? Spoiler alert. I'm pretty sure I gave a spoiler alert earlier on, and I've been talking about spoilers this whole time, so anyway, the very last shot of this show is a panning shot from the window of the penthouse that Penguin is staying in now, because he pretty much owns the city. A panning shot from that window to the cityscape of Gotham, and at the very last half second, the bat signal turns on in the sky. So for all those people that were very upset that the Batman wasn't referenced in the show, who gives a fuck, dude? The show was incredible. You don't need the Batman in it to make it any better. I'm actually quite glad that they didn't add the Batman in the show in any aspect, except for the last half second of the last episode where the bat signal shines in the sky. That's a really cool nod to it, but I'm glad that that's where they left it. So that's pretty much all my thoughts on the Penguin. I don't know how long this video is going to be by the end of this recording, but it's over half an hour long at this point, and I can't believe I've ranted on for over half an hour about this show. But it's been a hell of a ride watching the show week to week. I'm so glad that they made it. I know that there are rumors out there that they are making other shows on side characters that are character driven, along with the Batman trilogy and the world of Matt Reeves' Batman, which is cool. I'm excited for those. I'm glad that they're going down that kind of character driven route. I just hope that they don't water down the universe and the world that they've built here. I hope they implore quality over quantity, unlike Marvel, the MCU at the moment. I hope it's all quality work that they put out, and they don't just go for the money and cash grab and cash in on this new incredible world that's been made and spawned out of the Batman. So that's it. That's it for the Penguin. Loved it. I cannot wait for the Batman Part 2. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm sad it's over, but it was a hell of a ride.